Okay, we're live.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Talking Amongst Our Shelves, the monthly live show with Kate, Becky, and Bethany, where we ramble about books and just any kind of rabbit trails that we have because of that. So this month we're planning on talking about memorable reading experiences that we've had. So we're really looking forward to talking about that. We each have several books in mind. But first we'll do our normal thing of talking about our current reads. So I guess Becky, would you like to start?
Sure. So I have to remember which stack they're on this side. I was like, oh my gosh, they disappeared. I just had them 2 seconds ago. So I'm currently in the middle of two, sort of. I'll explain sort of in a minute. But one that I'm close to being done with is Jurassic Park, which I've never read before, but for a personal reading challenge of mine, I decided this year I would try to read different genres out of my comfort zone. And sci-fi kind of thriller-ish is something that I rarely pick up, but the couple of times I have picked up sci-fi, I really enjoyed it. Um, and I had a friend with fairly similar reading taste to me read Jurassic Park a couple years ago and tell me that she loved it, and it was pretty close to the film, but she ended up enjoying the book even more. So I had it on my TBR and was like, okay, 2019, I'm reading Jurassic Park, and I don't know what it is about it. I'm really enjoying it. I'm not super into dinosaurs. I don't understand anything about DNA. I don't know, but I'm really kind of swept up into the world and I'm really enjoying it. And I only have about 130 pages left, so I should be able to finish it before the month is out. And yeah, pleasantly surprised, but I'm really enjoying it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's so fun. Yeah, I don't know if I would kind of know what to expect out of Jurassic Park.
Yeah, I have seen the original, like Steven Spielberg 90s Jurassic Park. I've only seen the first one and I've seen it I think once, but I didn't grow up with it. So, which is kind of nice because I can remember parts of the movie, but it's not so recent that I'm constantly comparing the book to the movie. The book, I can just kind of enjoy the book as its own. But yeah, again, surprisingly, I have also found, at least with film, um, in the horror genre, the monster flicks like King Kong, Frankenstein, Dracula, Wolfman, Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Those are the more like I can enjoy things with creatures much more in the scary. Probably because it's easier for me to like I know that they're not real. So maybe I can just suspend just disbelief and just enjoy it more. I don't know. So I was like, okay, for sci-fi, we'll do another like creature thing. And it seems to be working.
Um, Apparently Maud Hart Lovelace's husband Delos wrote the novelization of King Kong.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
That's a fun fact.
That is
Yeah.
a fun fact.
So it was written after the film came out, but I thought that was really fun. I commented on a booktube video.
Very cool.
What's that?
I said that's very cool.
Yeah, I like that.
I never knew that.
Um, so what's your other book that you're currently reading?
Okay. I was browsing the library and I had finished up a couple really, really good middle grade books that kind of put me in a reading slump because like nothing else I pick up is going to be this good. So I was just browsing the shelves of what sticks out to me. And I saw this on the shelf and I was like, I need that. It's the Oregon Trail, the Race to Chimney Rock, a choose your own trail adventure. So it's basically like a choose your own adventure book, but Oregon Trail. And
So
it's just
fabulous.
bringing back all the childhood nostalgia. I did not die from dysentery. I died from cholera. And I died from starving my cattle. It took me about 5 tries to not die or get stranded somewhere. But I say I'm sort of in the middle of it because I've done a few. There are more than, I think there are 22 ending options.
Oh my goodness.
So it really is kind of like the video game in that you go through and it's like, oh, do you go diagonally across the river or straight across the river? And it gives, and then you know, it's like a choose your adventure. It's like, if you do this, turn to this page. So I've just been going through it, but I kind of want to go through and see what some of the different routes lead me to. It really does kind of feel like trying to reach the next level in the computer game. Because you're like, oh, I left in April. What would happen if I left in May? Also, some of the things, like some of the routes that I took, I thought for sure was like, this seems to be like logical, practical, like wisest, least risk-taking choice. And then you like randomly end up sick and die. So there are a couple where it's like, oh, I thought that this would be the obvious answer to get me the Chimney Rock. I get there are 4 books in this series, so each book is like one of the main stages that's referenced on the Oregon Trail and in the computer game. So, or actually, no, it isn't. The Oregon Trail, Danger at the Haunted Gate, The Search for Snake River, and The Road to Oregon City. So this is the first one. I don't know if I'm actually going to read all 4, but I kind of want to go through and see what some of the paths I wouldn't normally take would feed me to. We'll see if I die from dysentery.
Please don't.
So anyway, so those are my 2 current reads, which I'm very happy about because I feel like I could finish them right as the month ends, and then I can start April with a clean slate.
Yes. Very cool.
Yes.
Bethany, do you want to talk about your current
I
reads?
just have one current read, as usual. I don't know if you guys can even see that. Can you see the cover at all?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's The Bronte Sisters, The Brief Lives of Charlotte, Emily, and Anne by Catherine Reef. Was it Catherine or Kathleen? It's Catherine Reef. And it's a biography of, obviously, the Bronte sisters. And I got kind of on a Bronte sister kick because I was reading My Plain Jane. And that is a novel written by 3 women who co-authored it. Like, I guess from what I heard is like each woman had her own character point of view. And so she would write that character all the way through the novel. So you have basically like every 3 chapters you're back to the first character again, and then the second character, and then the third character. So they have like 3 different points of view. I don't know how they did that. Can you imagine if all 3 of us sat down and tried to write a cohesive novel together about that has like a historical accuracy sort of to it, and then it's kind of based off of a very classic novel, Jane Eyre, but also has the Bronte sisters involved and as characters. There's a lot of balls in the air, but it's a lot of fun. I was like, I'm just into it. It's not like mind-blowing. It's not the best book I've ever read, obviously. It was a solid 3 stars for me. It was just fun. It was like, let's, pretend Jane Eyre was a real person and there's ghosts, and we'll do kind of like a Ghostbusters spin with Charlotte Bronte in there too. And it was so much fun. I don't know. I enjoyed it. But then I'm like, oh, I wonder if that's real. Ooh, how like truthfully based is this? Like, how much liberty did they take with these characters or with the Bronte's lives, So I was like, I gotta find out more. And so I went and looked up, I think I looked up middle grade or YA biography on any of the Brontes, and that's what came up on my Google search. So I was like, oh, okay, that looks good. So I'm 126 pages into it today. So, and it's really good. It's just very interesting. You're reading about all these little things, little snippets of their lives, and how hard they were, sicknesses and stuff that they had, and the ways that they wanted to write, but then they're living in kind of a man's world, and it's pre-Victorian England, and there's so many constraints. So it's very like frustrating in some ways to read, because Charlotte Bronte sends out like a note, like, here's some of my poetry to a famous poet, and can you give me any kind of criticism? And he's like, well, women shouldn't be writing at all. Go tend to other things. And it's like a little bit infuriating because Jane Eyre is like one of the greatest novels ever. So it's why would you squelch that talent? So it's kind of it makes you a little mad sometimes reading biographies, I think, but it's also fun. I don't know. So that's what I'm currently reading right now. That's it. That's all I've got. What about you, Kate?
Well, yeah, I just think the Brontes had such a like fascinating life that
Oh, yeah.
just it couldn't like when you read their books and then you hear about their lives, you're like, this couldn't be more fitting. Um, and like I heard there was bad water in the town that
Yeah.
they lived in, and so a lot of people were dying, and like the bodies just like piling up in the churchyard because the
Ugh.
what are you called if you bury people?
Churchyard, graveyard, cemetery.
No, the person who buries them though.
Oh,
like
sexton.
like the grave digger.
Yeah, gravedigger. They couldn't keep up with them.
Oh,
And their mother, like when she was dying, they could hear her all day crying in her bed and saying, "My poor children, my poor children."
yeah.
Like it sounds like made up. It's so gloomy sounding. Um, but another thing that's really crazy is the really famous portrait with the three Bronte sisters
Yeah.
in it.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and how there's a blur in the back. I may have already told you this. I can't remember where apparently Branwell, the brother, had painted it, but he didn't like how he painted himself in it, so he used other paint and painted over himself.
I
But
saw that.
now over time, that paint is fading away,
Oh my God.
and gradually Branwell's picture is becoming more clear.
That is cool.
Almost like a ghost story.
Yeah, that's so creepy. It's like Wuthering Heights.
It's like I
Or the
haven't read a picture of Dorian
Dorian
Gray, but it feels
Gray.
like a Wuthering
Like,
Heights picture of
it's
Dorian
so
Gray
weird.
crossover.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
I know. So weird. Okay, so my current reads, I am reading the ninth, the ninth Maisie Dobbs elegy for Eddie.
Hmm?
Um, and as usual, there's such an ache about this series. Um, so I hurt when I read them, but when I'm in the mood for them, like I really enjoy them. It's a really sad time in the world. So it shouldn't be surprising then because it's between both the wars, and so there's lots of soldiers coming to terms with everything that they saw while they were serving on the front lines. Um, and like the economy is struggling, and families kind of trying to cope after maybe the dad didn't come back, different all of the things that come along with after a huge war like that. um and it was interesting. I saw another booktuber talking about how she felt like the romance didn't necessarily ring true um in the series. Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, because I have a delay. I'm going to switch to the iPad in a minute, so I just couldn't tell if all of what I was saying was like gibberish. Um, so there is this like emotional distance from Maisie, but like I said, when I'm in the mood for it, I'm in the mood for it. Um, and yeah, I really like this series, but this is a particularly sad one. Um, so yeah, I have several mystery audiobooks that kind of piled up on overdrive, so I need to make my way through those. And then the other physical book that I'm reading, I still have like such a huge big old honking stack of middle grade books, so I'm just going to keep reading them until they expire from the library. Is The Doll People by Anne M. Martin of the Babysitters Club fame. So it's a very fun concept. It's this Victorian dollhouse. um, and so the one doll, she's 8 years old, but she's actually 85. Um, they live in this beautiful Victorian doll house, and they're all China dolls. And the mystery is one day one of the dolls went missing and they never knew what happened to her. And so the little girl, when she realizes that, the little girl doll wants to go on this journey to find her. But then also an element that's fun is that another dollhouse, a more modern dollhouse, is given to the younger sister. And that has more modern amenities, and like it has a microwave. And so the new dolls are asking the old dolls, like, where's your microwave? And they're like, what are you talking about? What's a microwave? And then after they visit, the Victorian dolls are like, oh, what a vulgar family. And they just are like so offended by just they didn't have the Victorian sensibilities. So yeah, I think it's one of those books where like you're like, yeah, it was cute, you know. So it's a really fun 3-star read, and it has illustrations all
Oh
throughout.
my goodness.
It's Brian Selznick is the guy who did them, and he's the same one who did the illustrations for The Remarkable Journey of Hugo Cabaret, which is a really cool book. Here's another one.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, those are so yeah, it's very fun, very quick, and I'm having fun with it. So does either one of you have one of your favorite middle grade March reads picked?
Sweep, hands down. I think we all are going to overlap on that. That book in particular, Sweep, it was just so good. It was fantastic.
It was
I'm gonna
really
grab
fun.
the iPad. I'll be right back.
Oh,
Okay.
you're fine.
Did you want to talk more about Sweet Bethany?
Oh, well, yeah, I loved all the Dickensian vibes. Like, yeah, we're talking about that before. And the just I don't know. Like the idea of a monster, but not a monster, that's kind of like this sweet, lovable creature. I don't know. I was very, very interested and very invested in the characters the whole way through. And I don't know. I just thought it was great. Oh, looks like Kate Hall left the call. Are you
Well,
still there, Becky?
I think she was going to switch to her iPad.
Okay.
So, okay, I think I'll give her a couple seconds and then I will. Oh, Kate
Oh,
Hall is doing this video call.
Yay! I'm back. We were just talking about Sweep and the Dickensian vibes and the awesome monster, but that wasn't really a monster creature that you just wanted to hug and snuggle. At least I did.
Yeah.
It was so sweet.
It was interesting. It was like I felt like it really treaded the line between magical realism and fantasy.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that the author made it so sweet and fun while still dealing with some really melancholy topics, but it was still fun. But the fun didn't make the melancholy aspects or the weighty, heavier aspects trite at all.
Yeah.
Like it truly, for me, it truly was a bittersweet read, which I really enjoyed. And for those watching, I had texted when I finished it, because I think I finished it after you guys. So you guys had already known what happened.
It was the first book I read in the month. So yeah.
I do not get super emotional reading books. I think Little Women is one of the only books I've ever cried while reading, and that was as a child. I didn't cry while reading Sweet, but like I teared up a little bit, which for me is like very emotionally. I will laugh out loud, but I don't like on the sad spectrum. I don't get that emotional while reading even pretty heavy books. So the fact that I was like tearing up, I was like, wow, this book is getting to me, but in a good way. It was, and even crying, it was like I was sad, happy. It's just purely bittersweet, but in the best way possible. Which really has me wanting to read his other books. I've already picked one up from the library. It's in the other room. Peter Nimble and something.
Oh yeah, that one sounds really interesting.
Yeah, I'm just I enjoyed Sweep enough that I'm like I want to dive into it to enjoy I'm drawing a blank on the author's name. Jonathan
Auxier. You
Yeah.
know what? Are
Yeah,
we 100% positive we're on air? Because my thing is saying off air, and then it says 5 waiting.
Mine is saying that we're live. We've gotten a couple comments from Rainy
Okay.
Reads.
And I see it on YouTube too.
Okay.
It looks like we're live.
Rainy, if you're still watching, can you tell us if you can see Kate? Because that would be helpful. If you're still
I feel like tonight is not my oh yeah, Rainy just said Sweep was my favorite too. Okay. Sorry. I had to like refresh my screen. Okay. Sorry.
Okay.
We've been having a few technical difficulties off air today. It's just, you know.
And hi Rainy, she can see everyone.
Okay, yay, thank you. Thank you for being our handy dandy audience.
Yes.
That's a very important part of this.
Yes.
This is the second time I think I've actually done the live show trying to use my phone. And so maybe my phone doesn't like Google Hangouts as much. I don't know.
My laptop doesn't. I have to use my husband's laptop, and he's upstairs working on our room. So I'm like, I don't have a laptop because I'm like, I don't know how to get to it on his laptop. His laptop's like completely different. I'm like technologically challenged, and grammatically challenged today apparently. So I'm like, I'm just doing this on my phone.
Yeah, there you go.
But it seems to have more issues.
Yes, it happens. It happens.
Right. Okay.
Okay. My favorite that I
Yes,
actually would beat Sweep, and it's so funny because I texted you. I was like, I'm scared to start Nevermore, but I loved it so.
Yay!
Yes.
I saw the Goodreads and I was like, yes, 5 stars. She loved it. We're all Nevermore Ian now.
Nevermore Ian.
Like, how do you end that sentence?
Yes, and Becky, it was on one of the Instagram accounts, like one of the messages with Bethany. Have you heard that there are going to be 9 total in the series?
No. It felt like there were going to be more, but also like sort of I wasn't sure. Oh my goodness, this is one of the first times I've ever read a series where most of the books weren't out yet. I don't know what I'm gonna do with my life.
Binging is not an option.
Yes. So I'm comforting myself because I'm like, well, there's people talk about the Mysterious Benedict Society. So maybe I'll try that. And then there's also Wildwood. I'm just gonna try some other ones. Or honestly, I seriously feel like just rereading Nevermore. Like I just feel like
there is Wondersmith.
There is Wondersmith, yes. And then I think the other one is projected to come out in December.
Christmas wish list.
Yes.
So
that could be a buddy read.
Oh, that could. And that would be a perfect, like so fun in December.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, yeah.
Like extra Christmas. I know we all need to like stalk our library's website for like when it's on, so we can be one of the first holds.
We can like, or like the moment that the new title drops, we're like requesting this book. It doesn't come out for another year, but please buy it.
Pre-order it now, library.
And please put me first up on your hold list.
So yeah, I kept talking it up to Dave, my husband, and being like, it's really good. I'm telling you. It's like, I like it as much as Harry Potter. He's like, okay. But I couldn't be like, you really have to read it. Because the more I said that, the more he would probably dig his heels in. So then it was very fateful. He got sick. And I had been talking. And then he like picks it up and starts reading. And I just like was like, oh. And inside I'm like,
playing it cool.
I'm not freaking out. I'm not at all.
Don't dog-ear the pages.
So you said you gave it 3.5 stars? Yeah. 3.5 stars, which is generous from him.
Yeah.
He didn't think it was like at all on the Harry Potter level, but he's like very loyal to Harry Potter. But he still enjoyed it.
That's fair.
I just don't like a lot of things.
He said, I just don't like a lot of things. So high praise indeed if it got 3.5 stars from Dave. What was I going to say that? Oh, I loved like getting introduced to the world. And one of the details that I thought was so fun is after Morrigan sees her room for the first time, And then Jupiter says, like, oh, it was a little dull. And she's like, yeah, I guess so. He's like, well, it's only just now getting to know you. Like, it'll change. So it's just really fun to think all of the different minds in the world, like the creative things. I would have never thought of adding something like that to a story.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And I love how much potential there is for the world.
Oh yeah.
Like, I feel like there's already so much established in the world.
Yes.
But you know that there is so much more untapped potential that even if I'm totally drawing a blank on the author thing, right? Like, even if she doesn't even tap into half of it, just the fact that the reader's imagination can kind of take off and be like, I wonder what's happening in this corner. I wonder where this character really comes from, because we don't really know their past. Like, there's so much potential for storytelling.
Yes.
Mm.
Now, either of you read Wondersmith?
Yes.
Whoa, you both were on it.
We were on Nevermore, and we're like, yes, we need more. We need more. Where's Wondersmith? We have to read it now. It was so good. I think I liked it better. Did you, Becky?
I think I liked Wondersmith better than Nevermore.
It just keeps getting...
Katie and Krista, the two middle grade March hosts, both said that.
Oh, really?
Yes. Yeah, I'm very excited. And yeah, there's just so much more to unpack, so many possibilities. The one complaint I had is I felt a little bit like I didn't get to know the characters quite well enough. But then I'm thinking, I can't remember how I felt after the first Harry Potter without the knowledge of the other ones. Like, I probably maybe felt a similar way. So I have faith.
Yeah. Yeah, I felt that way too, but feeling as though I wasn't sure if it, going into Wondersmith, I wasn't sure if it was going to be a trilogy or what it was, because I hadn't really heard anything about another book coming out. It was like, I feel like it's going to be a series. So I felt as though I gave the author a bit of grace of like, okay, I don't feel as though I fully understand these characters, but I don't feel like I'm supposed to.
Yeah.
So we'll see as the other books come out if more things are revealed. Oh, Rainy Day Reed says, I think I liked Nevermore better, but I can't really pinpoint why. I feel like Nevermore had, well, I don't know. I was going to say, I feel like it had more world building than Wondersmith, but Wondersmith, I felt like it dived slightly deeper into the world, which I really like.
You got to know the characters better. Like, you fall in love with Jupiter right away. At least I did, because I was like, oh, he's so much fun. He's just a blast. And then, then Morgan is really interesting. And what was the character in Nevermore that was like her arch nemesis?
Hawthorne?
Whatever. Say that again?
Oh, no.
She was like a girl. I think she had blonde hair, and she was like a good singer.
I know who you're talking about, and I remember while we were reading it, I could never remember her name either.
Because nobody else remembers her. That's really funny.
I know, right?
Well, it's funny because in Wondersmith, I don't think she's even mentioned.
Is it Naomi?
No.
Or Nancy or something?
No, you were always getting the names wrong, Becky.
I know.
Cadence, you were like, why did you keep calling her? Constance or something? Candace. I was like, no. Anyway, not that it's like all that important, but it was just fun to get to, know each character, even though we don't remember any of their names anymore.
Well, it'd be sort of like calling Ron Weasley Dawn. Like, to anyone else who reads the series, you'd be like, oh my gosh, it's Ron Weasley. It'd be like, I keep forgetting if it's Ron or Dawn. I don't know.
I really liked Fenestra by the end of.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And it's a really fun thing, like this ginormous cat, which in real life would be absolutely terrifying.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. I have a small fear of cats, so like very terrifying. Very terrifying.
Our friend Bethany, do you remember my and Becky's friend Lauren Spiker?
I lived with. Oh wait, I don't think you visited me freshman year. I don't know if you met Lauren or not. She was at my wedding.
Wait, Lauren. Okay, she was one of your roommates and in theater.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So she is really scared of cats too, and she was like, I think it's really creepy that you can have a pet and you just don't know where it is. Like, it's somewhere in the house. We don't know where it is. And I also think part of it is she doesn't have peripheral vision. And I think a lot of times that's when you'll like notice like, oh, there's the cat. And so I think to her, it would be like, all of a sudden there's a cat in my face. So I can totally like sympathize with her being a little leery of them.
Yeah.
That's too funny.
All right. So Becky, did you have a favorite?
So I don't have my book journal in here, but I think I was going through and I was like looking at all my star ratings for this month. And I know that there were one or two, there were a couple that were pretty close together, but I think the most memorable and the hands down favorite was the Echo audiobook.
Oh.
Because Bethany had been raving about Echo. And then I had heard, I think Bethany, you had said, even though you didn't do the audiobook, you'd heard great things about the audiobook.
Yes.
And then a mom friend of mine had read Echo or had listened to it, I believe, with her kids and had done the audiobook and was like, oh my gosh, the audiobook is amazing. I really enjoyed it. I started the audiobook and I within the first like 2 or 3 minutes, I was so engrossed in the story. And then I heard chapter 1, or like Echo, chapter 1. And I was like, wait, that was just the prologue. I wasn't even like fully in the book yet. And I was already so invested. I usually speed up audiobooks to like 1.25 or 1.5 with the music elements and just with the story. I played it at normal speed because I didn't want to speed through it. And the narrators were so great. I really wanted to savor their voice. And I really liked how there were 3 very different stories that on their own would have made for great stories. But then like the little ways that they're woven together just makes it so great. I don't know. I had read All the Light We Cannot See, which really the only thing it has in common with Echo is it follows 2 very different characters around World War II. That's the only thing it has in common with Echo. But the ending was very different. And I found the ending for Echo very more satisfying. So it's like, okay, this is what I wanted All the Light We Cannot See to be, even though it's really not fair to compare them because they're different tones, they're different audiences, they're different stories. Like it's really comparing apples and oranges. But Echo just kind of like struck
hit the right note
in the best way. And
it hit the right note.
Yeah, I did not. Echo came to me at the wrong time. I had just finished a World War II historical fiction this past summer, and then I tried to listen to it, and I was like, "Oh, World War II!" And for some reason, I don't know why, like I hadn't been expecting World War II, so then I was like, "Oh, nope." So I didn't listen to that much. I listened to like maybe like 2 hours, and then I just knew it wasn't the right time. So I don't know when the right time will be for it, but I'm definitely going to try it again at some point.
Okay. Also, for those that haven't read or heard the book, Echo uses a harmonica very frequently, which I always picture as like an incredibly annoying instrument because I've only ever heard harmonicas played by children where it's like ring, 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 ring. And you're like, is this harmonica or is this the music from Psycho? I'm not really sure. I can't tell them apart.
Psycho's violins.
It just sounds awful. It just sounds awful. Or it's like, but the use of of harmonicas in Echo gave me a whole new appreciation for the harmonica.
That's so cool.
Like I never knew that I could not just enjoy listening to a harmonica, but it could put such emotion. I don't know. It changed the way I view things. And as someone who cannot read music, it gave me a deeper appreciation of music. That as someone who can't play an instrument and can't read music and understands very little about it, was a really great experience because I didn't feel as though I had to sit and take music lessons in order to appreciate music more. I think that's really why I loved it so much, because just seeing how much music meant to the characters made me appreciate music as an art even more. I don't know. It's
Very
awesome
cool.
when a middle grade book can do that and like change your outlook on things.
Yeah,
Love it.
that's awesome.
It's really great. It's so good. And now I'm like telling all my adult friends, I'm like, have you read Echo? You need to read Echo. And you can't just read it, you have to do the audiobook.
So do we want to, shall we move along? Segue into our topic?
Sure.
Memorable reading experiences. So I'll go first because I'm antsy to talk about this one. Okay. So I have A Sleeping Life by Ruth Rendell. This was the first, I did read some Nancy Drew and Boxcar Children, maybe some Hardy Boys growing up. So I read some children's mysteries growing up. But I hadn't read, I don't think I had read any mysteries as an adult. And so in my freshman year of college, maybe it was sophomore year. Anyhow, my grandmother always talked about Ruth Rendell. And so I was like, I'm going to try Ruth Rendell. And like I said, it was my first mystery reading experience as an adult. So, and also my first time reading like detective fiction, like written for adults. And it just blew my mind. Like, wow, I did not know a mystery could be like this. I didn't know, it was just so fascinating to me, like the psychology of it. Getting in people's heads, like the motivations of not only like the killer, but of the victims, and to see how all of the little details of their lives played into the storyline. Like details are so significant, and you just really have to have you have to be paying attention to everything that's happening in the story. And this detail, you know, that if you missed it earlier or you thought, oh, you know, it wasn't that important, it comes into play later on. So just the like the crafting of this story and weaving all the details together. And then with most Ruth Rendell's, there's a twist at the end. And I just, I loved it. And it's, I mean, it doesn't sound that interesting. It's there, it doesn't sound that different from other mysteries, but it's there's a woman who has, her body has been found in a nearby town where she lives, and she lives with her father, and there's only one clue, and it's expensive. It's an expensive leather wallet that's bought at this one exclusive store in London. It's like a really well-known store, but that's all they have to go on. And so then I also just really enjoyed getting to see Inspector Wexford just pulling back the layers and kind of figuring out everything and going off of what seems like nothing. Yeah, so I really like these. I would be interested to go back now and see how I think of this compared to some of the other mysteries I've read now, because I'm very fond of this, but now I'm like, maybe it wouldn't stand up to the other ones. I haven't done a lot of mystery rereading, because kind of I've been mostly a mystery reader as an adult. And I think a lot of the fun of the mystery is the surprise of like the ending. So
Yeah.
I think it is true with a lot of mystery readers, though, that when it's been a fair chunk of time and then you're going to reread, you kind of can forget the ending. Unless it's like Murder on the Orient Express. I think if you've read that, it's really hard to forget
Although
the ending.
I have a friend who read Murder on the Orient Express years ago and was going to go see the movie and couldn't remember how it ended, and her husband accidentally spoiled it for her. She was like, "Wait, I forgot the ending." And he's like, "Everyone knows the ending. You read the book." And she's like, "I read the book a long time ago. I forgot about it."
Oh.
I stand corrected. That's really funny.
I've read The Body in the Library by Agatha Christie twice.
Yeah.
And I can remember all about the body in the library. That scene is like very vivid in my mind. But both times, like, I read it, and the second time I read it, I totally couldn't remember how it was solved. And I think if I were to go back and reread it, it would be the same. Where like I remember a couple specific characters, I don't remember why they're significant.
That's so
I very vividly remember the body in the library. Maybe the third time I'd be able to solve it. But it was kind of like that, where it's like, I remember the setting, and I don't remember how it's solved.
I think Agatha Christie has kind of that sort of effect because of the puzzle mystery. What do you call it when she has a formula? Like, she does
Yeah.
kind of the same thing with most of
Mhm.
her books. So with that formula, you kind of like, oh yeah, I know sort of what she's doing, but was it this book that she did that, or was it? I don't remember exactly. It kind of gets
Always
fuzzy after.
a lot of characters. You're like, wait, I remember it was a woman, but there are 5 women. Which woman was it?
I'm thinking about a lot of mystery series that I read, and I don't think it's just Agatha Christie. I think because
Okay.
kind of the whole point of mysteries a lot of times is just the reading experience.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
There's like a couple Ruth Rendell, like there's one where there's incest, and so I've never forgotten like that you once you read it, you can't unread it.
Yep.
Um and there's like one Louise Penny where there was like this really, if you find out there's a really corrupt police department, but they've never been able to figure out what it is, and then they finally figure it out. I don't think I'll ever figure out. I don't think I'll ever forget like everything they figured out there. Um, but I think by and large, a lot of them, I'm like, oh, this is so fun. It's so good. I want to find out who did it. And I just enjoy reading it. And then a year later, I'm like, who did do it?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's so funny. Oh, well, I guess, Bethany, would you like to talk about?
Sure. I'm trying to think where to start with this because I had like some different ones that I thought uh, I might not have liked them as much, or I might have liked them more based on where I was and what I was doing
Mm.
for that experience. So I guess I'll do East of Eden. I don't think I would have loved East of Eden if I hadn't read it when I did and how I did. I basically went and got a copy from the library and got a bunch of note cards or post-it notes or something. And then as I was reading it, I was like, ooh, that's such beautiful writing. I was sitting outside, it was sunny and beautiful. I'd just gotten over a cold, and I'm like, all these quotes are just like jumping off the page to me. And I'm like, oh, this is such like amazing writing. I got so sucked away by like into everything by the writing instead of just the characters because I don't think I would have liked the characters and that would have been more of a
Oh,
turnoff for
there's not
me.
many people in it.
Yeah, there's not many, and I'm the type of reader that I like to follow a character that I can root for or a character that has some major change or something like that. That's more my speed. And East of Eden was definitely not that way where you're like, oh, this character is great. I don't think you could say that about any of the characters in East of Eden. Like, oh, this character was just amazing. Like, no flaws, or most of the flaws were small. Like, no, they were pretty much all messy. But I just love the writing and the quotes and like the symbolism. And sitting outside, it was like summertime, and I was just like enjoying the sunshine and enjoying kind of like taking notes and stuff. I don't know. I think I wanted to study a book really bad, and that's what I was reading at the time. And I'm like, I came out of it and I was like, I liked that book a lot. And I'm like, wait, why did I like that book? That is like so not what I usually read. It was really interesting. But I kind of wondered, looking back, like if I read that again, we always wonder this about the books we love or the books that we rate highly. Sometimes I think we think, oh, would I like that still? Would that still be like a great read, or would I read this and be like, what was I thinking? This book is not what I thought it was, or I don't like it at all now. I totally, was out of my mind when I read it. I don't know. I had just gotten over a cold, guys. I don't know. It might have been the cold. Because there was a pretty awful, not villain. I guess she would have been the villain. I don't know, but she was like awful.
Ugh.
She was a terrible character. And I'm like, why did I enjoy this book? I don't know.
I cried Uncle with East of Eden. I made
Yeah,
it like 300 pages, and I was like, I can't do it anymore.
yeah. I can understand why, like looking back on it now and like thinking of the characters and thinking of the main conflict, I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Why did I like this book again? Yeah, but
What's
I
funny?
that's go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say a few years ago too, I went on a like book trip with several other booktubers, with 4 other booktubers. And I was driving in the car, and I had done the buddy read of East of Eden with another booktuber, and I had bailed and she had not, and then it became like her favorite book ever. And then I like went asking the other girls in the car, and they were all like, yeah, I love that book. And I was like, I'm the only one in this car like who did not like the book. But it was just, as in the words of modern Mrs. Darcy, I love it. She says you should just say, it's not working for me.
Yep.
Not working for me.
You just didn't, you didn't read it at the right time. You weren't getting over a cold. You weren't sitting outside in the sunshine taking notes.
I don't think that would be the right time for me in East of Eden, to be honest.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Becky, do you have a favorite reading experience?
Okay, so I chose a couple books. One, I was trying to go based off of like most vivid reading memories. So there were a couple where it was like, love the book. One, I haven't decided if I talk about where I ended up hating the book, but the reading experience was extremely memorable. And so I guess I'll start with the one that I love. So, Wuthering Heights. Yeah. I had just started a couple years after college, I had gotten out of the habit of reading for pleasure in college, because when I was reading, I was studying. And so a couple years after college, I was like, man, I used to read so much, like pre-college, and then I kind of got out of the habit of it. I really wanted to get in the habit of reading again. So I did one of those Pop Sugar reading challenges. And to this day, I cannot remember what the prompt was. But for one of the prompts, I chose Wuthering Heights. I knew like nothing about it. I'd never read a Bronte novel before. I had really wanted to read classics, and I'd read a few, but they tended to be more of the children's classics, like Little Women or Pollyanna or whatever. So I kind of went into Wuthering Heights blind, and being a rusty reader where I hadn't read classics in a while, there's a lot of dialect in Wuthering Heights.
Yes.
It was a challenge. And there were times where I was enjoying it, but I wasn't sure if I was comprehending as much of it as I wanted to. But I just felt like I was treading water or like swimming. And I was like, I feel like I barely have my head above water, but I'm enjoying this, so I want to keep on reading. And at the time, I had to take a CPR class. And we did all of it in one day. I forget how long it was, but it was long enough where I was like, we will probably have a break about halfway through the CPR class. I should take a book or something with me. So the book that I was reading was Wuthering Heights. So I take Wuthering Heights to be my like downtime reading. And we had like a 15-minute break, and I was sitting in this room, and the instructor walked up to me and was like, "Are you a teacher? Because why else would someone be reading Wuthering Heights in a CPR class?" And I was reading, and I was like, "No, I like classics, and I've never read it, and I thought I should read it, and so I'm reading it." And he's like, "So you're a literature person?" I was like, "I mean, I guess so." So then I felt like I had all this pressure of like, I'm reading Wuthering Heights in public. Like I felt so like pretend. I was like, oh no, do people think I'm snobby reading Wuthering Heights? Anyway, I finished Wuthering Heights and I loved it. And then I talked to a couple of friends of mine. They were like, oh yeah, I couldn't even finish that book. Like it just wasn't for me. And I was like, oh no, was I just like really proud of myself that I'd finished it and I had the audacity to read it during the break of a CPR class. But then, because this is a very nice small book that fits very nicely in, say, a carry-on on an airplane, it's what I took with me to Scotland last fall. So I reread Wuthering Heights, and I loved it just as much as I did the first time. And this time I knew I totally comprehended it. I comprehended it the first time. So when we were talking about like books, we were like, oh, I really enjoyed reading that, but I wonder if if a reread, if it would kind of hold up. I think part of the reason I loved Wuthering Heights the first time was because I had such a sense of accomplishment of like, wow, this was totally out of my comfort zone. There was a lot of dialect, it was older English. I'm a rusty reader, all of these things, but I made it. And then, and then I reread it and I was like, no, it's still great. I love it so much. And this
Oh.
book is just so little and cute, and I love it.
I loved it. Yeah, I loved Wuthering Heights even more the second time around. And that's just the great thing I think about classics is they are just the gift that keeps on giving. And so the first time, like you said, like you're taking in the dialect, you're taking in so many different characters and the flow of the plot line and the pacing and all of the things you're surprised about. And so I think if it's a true favorite, I think it's almost more fun to read it the second time. Because like in Emma, you're like, oh, see, I saw that hint there, and I didn't see that coming the first time, and now, I was ready for that. So
also, I will say, because everyone basically has the same name in Wuthering Heights, it was way easier to keep track of the characters the second time around when you're like trying to figure out which Catherine you're talking about.
That's so true. Oh, yes. Yeah.
Although I will say the first edition I borrowed from the library, and it actually had like a chart on the front to show who was related to who and who had what name and who had what maiden name and what name they went by. This one did not have a chart, but I still pretty vividly remembered the chart from the first time reading it, even though it was several years before. So even though there are a lot of name overlaps, I felt as though it wasn't as much of a hurdle, because I'd read it before and I knew what happened, but it made a big difference.
Yes. Oh, Bobby Davis says, poor Isabella Linton, although Kathy did try to warn her that Heathcliff was a wolf. Yeah, I think Isabella is maybe the only character that I'm like, I genuinely feel sorry for you.
Oh, yeah.
Like, the other characters
I think that was the other thing is reading Wuthering Heights. Again, I kind of went into it blind. I didn't know anything about the story. I'd never watched a film adaptation. I'd never read a synopsis or anything about it. And so I was reading it and I was kind of like, oh, like I didn't have the preconception that this was a romance. We just went into it like, oh, these are all terrible people ruining their lives. I'm going to watch their world burn.
Yes.
So I went into it with that mentality. And I think if I'd gone into it thinking it was a romance, I think I would have hated it. But I just pretty quickly figured out, I was like, oh, this is a book about awful people.
Because you are a very practical person. And so I think that's so that saved your experience of the book. If somebody had been like, it's so romantic.
I'm also a very skeptical person when it comes to people, not in terms of the world necessarily, but I'm skeptical of people and their motivations. So I think for my personality, it worked out very well that I didn't dive into the book just assuming everything was hunky-dory, or just being like, oh, well, there's got to be a better side to things. I'm reading this and I'm like, wow, Heathcliff is a jerk, and nothing you can say is going to make me change my mind. And I'm okay with admitting that he's a jerk because I'm very skeptical of people, and I start off by thinking they're jerks, and they have to convince me that they're not.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So yes, this
good way to go about Wuthering Heights.
It was what?
I said it's a good way to go about Wuthering Heights.
It is a great way to go about Wuthering Heights.
With your guard up.
Yeah.
Okay. So in the realm of classics, I want to talk about Emma by Jane Austen.
I just read that for the first time this spring.
And you liked it. I'm so glad you liked it, because Emma, the character, really ruins really ruins the book for a lot of people. And Jane Austen even said in a letter to a friend, now I shall write a book with a heroine that only I like. So yes, the memorable reading experience, Rainy Day Read says, yay, Emma. So the memorable reading experience I had with this was the reread. The first time I read it, I think I was in high school. And I read this in 2016 again. And the catalyst was that the Jane Austen Society of North America, the Eastern PA branch chapter, was doing a whole day devoted to Emma, because it was in 2016, it turned 200 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And it was right at the time that Emma at Bookish Princess and I found each other's channels. and she was in like she lives close enough that she could come to the Emma Day too. And so even though I had just met her, I was like, do you want to do this, this Jane Austen thing together? And she did. So I was very excited. I was going to like get to meet a booktuber and get to do this whole day. So I read Emma and I loved it. I love the pacing of it, and I really like. I was actually gonna say, and then I forgot. Like the same thing in Nevermore. This sounds weird, but I love getting to follow people over the course of a year, and so there's a very like clear flow of the seasons in Emma. Like you have the strawberry picking, and then you have there's snow, and there's the Christmas party, and the Box Hill picnic. Like different seasonal things, and so I really love that about it. And you see just kind of you just get a like picture into these characters' lives over the course of a year. And I also love it's so freaking hilarious. It's just so funny. And like Miss Bates and Mr. Elton, which sometimes he's like he just is too annoying for me to laugh at, but then other times I'm like, okay, that's really funny. And then Mr. Knightley is just so he's just so great. He's so great. And Mr. Woodhouse, how he's like such a worrywart. So then it was really fun because we went to Emma Day and there were like 3 different talks about Emma. And like one person, their talk was about actually how Miss Bates was a lot smarter than a lot of people gave her credit for. And they gave all of these quotes and it was really interesting. Like she notices everything. She's like Mrs. Norris in Harry Potter. Like she like picks up on every single detail and you'll hear her reference it later on. And then the crowning glory of the day was this British speaker was there. And this is so bad. And I was trying like for the past like 5 minutes, what was his name? And it was John Mullins, I think, or John Mullen. Anyhow, he's very charismatic. And there's actually, both of you would find really interesting on YouTube. They had this like big debate about Bronte's versus Austen. And they had professional actors act out scenes. Yeah, it's really fun. I'll send the link later on.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
And so he spoke on behalf of Jane Austen and he's just so charismatic and he's read each of her novels like 20 times over. He's obsessed. He's a English professor. And he just has this magnetic personality. And he's written What Matters in Jane Austen, this book about just different like
I read that.
Okay, yeah. Is it John Mullins? Is that right?
I think so, but it was like the last summer I read it. I can't remember exactly.
Yeah. And he argues a case. I don't want to do spoilers, so I'll leave the names out, but that these 2 characters that they're actually walked in on when they're kissing. And he said, I didn't notice this until my 23rd read through of this book. So yeah, it was just so fun because there was just so much love for Jane Austen at this event. There were like 100 other people there. And it was just so fun. And also like a remarkable side note about the day was, I think, you're not going to see much diversity at like a Jane Austen event. Like most of the people there were white. And I remembered seeing at the back of the room, there was this really pretty African-American girl with like beautiful hair. And she was just dressed really nicely. And I remember thinking that. And this is so weird. There's this young couple who's been going to our church and they came over for dinner. And I knew like something about her. I was like, something looks like, what is it about her? And then I started talking about Jane Austen and she started talking about Emma Day. And I had noticed her at Emma Day and we had been going to church together for a while, but I hadn't figured it out. And I had totally noticed her at Emma Day. So
that's so cool. I feel like that's something out of a movie where it's like you saw this person from across the room and you didn't realize that your lives' paths would cross again until later.
Those like amazing curly hair because she's like she's half African American and half Hispanic, so she's just like so beautiful. And I had noticed her there because obviously, like I said, it was like mostly white people
Yeah.
at an event. Yeah, so it was so funny. Like we both really like geeked out once we realized. So that was a really long one. So, Bethany, did you have one?
Yeah. This was actually an audiobook, but I'll show you. The Scarlet Pimpernel. Have either of you read this?
I have it checked out from the library, but I've never read it.
I need to.
It's on my.
Yes, you do need to. Okay, so when I was probably a teenager, we would go on, I mean, all my life up until I was like in my 20s, we would go to New York for Thanksgiving to visit my dad's dad. And it was like an 8, 9, sometimes 9 hour car ride. So we would be in the car and we'd have to do something with all that time. So we'd listen to audiobooks. And those are my like favorite, some of my favorite memories of like falling in love with the story are those like road trips because we'd be driving through Pennsylvania. And of course, Pennsylvania is just like trees, mountains, and trees, mountains, and trees. So there's not a whole lot to look at for the most part on the roads we would take anyway. And so we listened the one year to the Scarlet Pimpernel. Like, Pimpernel, what is that? Like, I was like, I was a teenager, like, what the heck is this? And my parents had like concocted for us to listen to. We do different ones. We do some of like historical fiction most of the time, or the Amelia Peabody books, or I think the one was called The Hatchet or just Hatchet.
Yes.
I think isn't that historical? Maybe not. Maybe it's just
no. It's more of it's like a middle grade survival story.
Okay.
I only know because we just did the audiobook for our Thanksgiving drive.
Oh, that's too cool. So anyway, this one was like nothing we had ever done before as like a family, as an audiobook. And the guy who did, I don't know who it was. It was a book on probably tape or CD. Whoever did the voice, did the like the reading and did the voices, he did a phenomenal job with the main character. He made him sound just like completely hilarious because this guy is like, I don't want to give too much away. He's kind of a pompous, like lazy rich guy, I guess, and he's got to talk in this slow, drawling manner and make everybody think he's kind of an idiot. So the way that that comes off in an audiobook, you just laugh. You spend most of your time listening to this and laughing because it's so funny. It's like, who talks like that? Really? Like this guy is so idiotic. It's funny. But it's an adventure story. Is it French Revolution, I believe? Yeah, French Revolution, which might dampen it for you, Becky.
It's okay.
I love French Revolution stuff. I'm like all about it. I love A Tale of Two Cities. I love this. I'm all about it.
Viva la France, says Bethany.
Yes. Oh, I wish I had learned French for Villette. That was a great book too, even though that wasn't about, well, anything like French Revolution-y, but it had a lot of French in it. Was it Brussels?
Yeah.
That was set?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was in Brussels.
Which, fun fact, before I transfer this to Becky, that has major ties into Charlotte Bronte's actual life, that book. As I'm reading the biography about her, I'm like, oh, that sounds an awful lot like Villette, like the novel. I'm like, what in the world?
I didn't want to read the introduction to Villette, but I did see, as you're like flipping through, trying to get past the 40 pages of the introduction, you're like, I don't want any spoilers.
Don't spoil it.
I fall on a line that said something about her life likely very much influencing Villette. And I was like, I don't want to know about her life. If it's going to give me spoilers for this book, I don't want to know anything. I just,
I didn't know anything about it. And then because I knew that the girls had been governesses kind of against what they wanted. They like didn't feel suited for the role of a governess or a teacher. They didn't like it. But I knew they had like drawn on those experiences to write some of their books. not Emily, obviously, but and Charlotte. So I was like, kind of like, well, what, Jane Eyre, she's kind of clever, but she's kind of also like, I don't know, she has this love story and it's all good and not all good, but like it ends well. And Charlotte's actual life, I know she dies young and stuff. So I was like, this doesn't sound like true to life. And then Villette, I'm like, oh, this sounds like so much like Villette. This Charlotte's biography. I'm like, oh my gosh. So it's very
Yes.
interesting. Very, very interesting. But
Like
anyway.
illicit love interest.
Yes. Hey, you know too much. Kate's like, I've read all about Charlotte.
You guys really I really think you would enjoy Bonnets at Dawn. Because
I know, I keep meaning to like look that up
about.
when I'm painting and doing different house projects. I'm like, I need to listen to that.
Yeah, but don't listen to it do headphones if you're around your kids, because there is
Oh, yeah.
swearing. No. But
Well, I can't listen to podcasts when they're awake anyway. Mom, huh? What are you doing, Mom?
Then I get really grumpy at them, and I'm like, I'm just better off not even trying
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah, exactly. Nap time is like the only time.
Yeah. Becky, what is your next memorable reading experience?
Okay, well, let me ask you guys, would you rather have the quirky reading experience or the sentimental reading experience?
Oh, sentimental.
Yeah,
Sentimental.
I'm gonna go with Kate. Sentimental.
Okay. So, I had never read To Kill a Mockingbird before.
Oh.
I was in my 20s, and I had mentioned to a family member, I don't even know how we got on the discussion, but I mentioned to a family member that I hadn't read To Kill a Mockingbird. And they're like, oh, I own it. You can borrow it. And the whole family was going to be staying at a cabin in the middle of nowhere in Maine. So I was like, oh, okay, well, when we go up to the cabin where there's no internet or anything, I'll borrow the book from you just if you could bring it. So this relative brought To Kill a Mockingbird. And because I knew I had to return it to her, I was very intentional about reading it while we were at this cabin. And it was just like perfect book, perfect timing, perfect setting. Again, no internet, almost no cell phone service.
Were you out in nature?
What?
If you're out in nature, I feel like that just enhances.
Well,
nature.
it was November in Maine.
Oh, yeah.
So out in nature, as in you're really bundled up walking between cabins. But
or at a window seat, maybe, gazing out into the wilderness.
A very cozy leather couch while it's dark outside at 4 p.m.
So not so much. Not so much with the nature.
It was a rustic cabin, there was wood in it.
Still a great reading experience. I was just thinking, wilderness reading.
I could look out the window and see the lake.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, there you go. Okay.
So anyway, so it was just it's cold outside, it's chilly, it's Thanksgiving, the holidays are coming, and I was just totally swept up in this book. No, that we were with a whole bunch of family. There's stuff going on, and I'm just on the couch, I have to read this book. I have to find out what happens. And then I finished it. I think I finished it in 2 or 3 days, and gave it back. And then my father-in-law was like, so who killed the mockingbird? And so then as we're sitting down to dinner, I was spewing out all of my thoughts on this book and going off on the symbolism, and the rest of the family is kind of our son married another street. No, not really. They're all very sweet. But in my mind, I'm just kind of oh no, they probably think I'm crazy. And then I think I had brought another book up with me, but I honestly don't remember what I brought because I had enjoyed To Kill a Mockingbird so much that it was this was perfect book, perfect place. I can't read anything else now. I just have to watch movies on the DVD player. So like I don't even remember what I did for the rest of the time we were up there. So I've actually only read it once because I have such fond memories of enjoying it that I'm like kind of like what we were talking about earlier. Like I'm a little afraid I'm gonna pick it up and it's just not gonna be the same. But Bethany, I know that you're very fond of it. So I have
yeah. I've taught it multiple times. Oh yeah.
So anyway, but I at the bargain bookstore near me, I found this very pretty UK copy that sits on my shelf. And one day I'm going to pick it up again.
Sigh.
It's a UK copy?
I'm pretty sure, yeah.
That's so ironic. They get this like gorgeous edition. It's not even their book.
I know.
They just improve on all covers. That's just their thing.
Why is that? Like, why do we get all of the tacky ones?
I know, exactly. Except Flavia Duluth. I think the Flavia Duluth ones are better. Here.
Sorry, Bethany, I was talking over you. I apologize.
Oh, you're fine. Flavia Duluth, I think, is better.
Oh, yeah.
Is it these ones? These are the American ones, right, Becky? Becky's the expert.
I don't know. I have seen cover art for another one, but I don't actually know if they're Canadian or if they are UK.
Oh, okay.
The author is Canadian.
Oh, well, never mind then. America puts out the lousiest covers. They had one good cover. Yes, Rainy Day Reed says she's reading Flavia now. Enjoy. Forever enjoy. Flavia is amazing.
Flavia is, I want to say Flavia is my soulmate, but I don't know what that would say about my soul.
She's in you somewhere, Becky.
She really is. Deep, deep down. There's Flavia.
Not so deep.
Maybe not so deep.
Doppelganger.
Yeah.
She's like bad Becky.
Bad Becky.
Okay, I have 10% battery, so do we want to try to do rapid fire each one more?
Sure. Okay. Go ahead, Kate.
Go, Kate.
These are ones I'm really scared to reread these. I don't know when I will, but the Lunar Chronicles. So, this was like, our generation experienced Harry Potter as kids. And so this was the first like fantasy type series I got into as an adult. And when Peter was a baby, and when he wasn't mobile, it was like ridiculous the amount of reading time I was able to fit in, because he would take a morning nap, an afternoon nap, and then after his afternoon nap, I would walk him around in the stroller for an hour while I did an audiobook. And so I was able to do a lot of reading, and I just so vividly, like, I loved walking around my parents' neighborhood. They had a really good, like, huge loop in their subdivision. And we would walk like rain or shine. Like sometimes it would be pouring buckets and I just had like the rain guard on the stroller and I would have like my raincoat like this around my face. And so I just remember so vividly like walking around their neighborhood and listening to the Lunar Chronicles audiobooks. And I was just like swept away by it. And like I said, I don't know if they'd live up to rereads, but it was just so fun to be reading such a fun story. And they're like, I know we all really don't like lots of teenage angst in YA books, but since like their life is in mortal peril at some points, like when there is teenage angst in it, it seems like pretty reasonable.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, this is not like, oh, he didn't give me a note after second period. This is like, I don't know if we'll ever see each other again. You know, I'm kind of a cyborg. I don't know how he feels.
Yep.
I love it.
So, yeah, just like good fun. Like to be that swept up in such a fun, frivolous series.
Yeah.
Mine is David Copperfield. I read that outside, sitting on a bench. I read it, I think, in a couple of days, but like mostly one day, like the majority of it. Just sitting outside. It was a beautiful day. It was like spring, possibly moving into summer, and it was just like I was going through it and just soaking it all in and enjoying all of Dickens' descriptions, and it helped that I was in nature. I always feel like that helps my enjoyment of reading. Like when I'm camping, when I'm sitting outside and there's sunshine and fresh air, and I don't know. It was like at my parents' house in the country. It was peaceful. And I didn't have anybody interrupting me. I was like probably like 18, I think, when I read it, 19, something like that. I came to work sunburned, and everybody was like, "You were out reading, weren't you?"
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I love that. Was a fun experience.
I cannot believe like what a beautiful marriage between like dark and gritty storyline, but still cozy feeling that David Copperfield is.
I love it.
It's so good. Becky, that's you. David Copperfield.
I was going to say, I was like, I heard dark. That piqued my interest.
Well, most of Dickens' stuff is dark, I think. I think he's got a lot of dark, nefarious characters, a lot of dark, gritty streets.
I liked the beginning of Great Expectations, that all the stuff set at Miss Havisham's, and then the latter half of Great Expectations, you don't visit Miss Havisham anymore. And I was like, well, that was my favorite part.
I don't even like Great Expectations that much, so.
Yeah, the Pickwick Papers, I think, is the only, like, really, truly silly one.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. The rest of them have a lot of dark themes or, like, ghosts or...
In Dickens, your relationship is not over yet, Becky.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, we're planning on reading Buddy reading Oliver Twist soon. So sorry, I'll shut up so you can talk. Kate's battery life is at
I
stake.
know. Okay. So my reading experience, and I'm going to have to use a book to demonstrate this. This is not the book. This is The Woman in White. But the book I'm going to be talking about is Anne of the Island. But I need to use this as a visual. So I was reading through Heart of the Anne of Green Gables. I'm sorry, I'm going to talk really fast. There's a way that you can slow down the video if you guys are watching this when it's not live. Like, you can slow me down to 3/4 of the speed. Anywho, so I was reading Anne of the Island, and I borrowed it from the library. And this edition was in the adult section. It was not in the children's section. And it was a little bit bigger than this. It was a very, like, pretty burgundy book with gold lettering. And I just felt like so fancy and grown up reading this. I got about a quarter of the way through the book, and the chapter cut off in the middle of the chapter. And I turned the page, and the next chapter was like chapter 20 something. The format of the book was wrong. So I was like, well, where's the story? How am I going to read this? So I flipped to the back of the book, and the rest of the chapter continued in the back. The pages were in the wrong order.
Oh.
But it was like, it worked out where, like, I could read this page and then flip up here and then read this page, and then I'd flip back and I'd flip back and I'd flip back.
Oh.
The end of the book was actually closer to, like, the last third of the book. But the exterior was so pretty, I didn't want to exchange it for, like, another copy at the library. I was just determined to use 2 bookmarks and flip back and forth. So I'm flipping back and forth through this. Like, I had to work through Anne of the Island. But then I got to the ending of Anne of the Island, and so many questions I had from the previous 2 books are, like, beginning to wrap up, and it was very rewarding, especially after having to work very hard to read that book. But ever since then, I've come across books that have had, like, maybe a typo, but I've never come across books where the entire layout of the book was incorrect. And to this day, I've never seen another edition of that copy. So, like, I don't know if it was a fluke with that particular edition, or if there were...
Did you tell the library?
Huh?
Did you tell the library? It was a library book, right?
It was a library book. I think I was too embarrassed to tell them because it had the card in the back with other people's names, so I knew that other people had read it.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, like, I don't know why Ellen Montgomery sold so many books. That book was just, it made no sense.
Yeah. I mean, I was glad I figured it out. Like, I was glad that I knew that, like, I was able to figure out the beginning chapters were at the back and in the middle and flip back and forth. But that was a very memorable reading experience.
No kidding.
I was also, like, pre-teen. I got an adult library card when I was 12 or 13 where I could check out books, because the way our library had it, you could check out children's books and a children's card, but adult books and media, you had to have an adult card. But my parents trusted me, so I got an adult card pretty young. So I knew I had an adult card because it was from the adult literature section, but it was like pretty, it was one of the first books I checked out with my adult card. And I think I was young enough that I was like too shy to tell the librarian, but the format was messed up. Plus it was so pretty. It was a really pretty book.
On the outside.
On the outside.
You can't judge a book by its cover.
I knew that was going to come up.
The format might be all messed up. They also had a very pretty copy of Pollyanna.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Did you read that specific copy? Because I wonder if it was the same.
It was not. It was a different publisher. And I remember the cover of the Anne of the Island a little bit more vividly. But the Pollyanna was so pretty that Christmas I asked for a, quote, pretty Pollyanna. And my dad found me an antique copy, and my love of old pretty books started.
I should go see if they still have it.
I can tell you which branch it was at.
Oh my goodness.
When we get off. Who knows? It was so long ago. They probably pulled it and put it in the library book sale already, especially if someone reported that the formatting was wrong.
Ew, that's too funny. What if it's still there? If nobody has ever said this book is completely
I keep saying Anne of the Island. I am 95% sure it's Anne of the Island. There's a slim chance it could have been Anne of Avonlea. But I remember having such strong feelings about the ending that it makes me think it was Anne of the Island, because I don't think I would have had that same reaction to Anne of Avonlea. But I would check both titles.
Fair enough.
Yes. How's your battery, Kate?
My iPad's battery. My battery's good. 7%.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Like
I think now I'm going to eat some Cadbury eggs and watch a Mary Tyler Moore before I go to sleep.
That sounds absolutely wonderful.
it does.
I think I'm going to heat up a rice pack and continue reading Jurassic Park.
There you go. Do you know last year your rice pack that you made me in college finally bit the dust?
I have to make you a new one.
Ooh, would you?
I can send you pictures of the fabric stash that I have, and you can.
The perfect size, and it smelled so nice. And then, bless her heart, my mom made me a new one, but it was way too big. Like it was like this big and this wide. That doesn't really illustrate, but it was just way too big. Yours was like perfect.
Okay.
Becky's like, what size was it?
I used a pattern. I think I freehanded it, so I don't know if I'll be able to make you another perfect one, but we'll figure it out. Did I make yours cinnamon or lavender?
Cinnamon.
Okay. I'll make
I love it. She's like cinnamon. It's nostalgic now, Becky.
I'm pretty sure the one my mom made me was like 10 pounds. Like it was really heavy.
Oh, okay. See, I like the big ones because it's like a weighted blanket, only not.
Do you have one of those weighted blankets?
No, I'm too cheap to buy one.
Oh, they're expensive, but I want one because they're like the best. My friend has one, my friend Lori, and I was like, she's like, come sit on the couch with me. I was like sitting on the couch with her, and she's like, feel this, and she pulls it, like literally has to like drag it over top of us. Like, this is fantastic.
Awesome.
They're amazing.
Oh, yes.
Well, Kate, I will happily make you another.
You're such a good friend.
Bethany, I'll make you one too if you want one.
I would like one, but the problem lies in the fact that I don't have a microwave. Like, how do you heat up?
Oh.
that is a little problematic.
Wisconsin mom has a weighted blanket. They're nice. My mom
Yeah.
actually made my sister one, and then my sister decided. I think she just decided it wasn't like she didn't like it like she thought she was going to. So I don't know what happened to this really nice weighted blanket. Who knows? But it's really annoying to sew because you have to like pour all the beads in.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
With, like the pouches full of beads. Yeah. All right. Well, I guess I'll wrap it up. Thank you everyone for watching, and we'll be back. We'll announce soon our April date for Talking Amongst Our Shelves. And thank you for watching later on if this was not at a convenient time. And I hope you have a lovely and bookish weekend.
Bye.
Bye.